Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Shriners Children's Open DFS Tactics show. As always, we have a lot to cover on this Wednesday evening. We have a chaotic forecast to check in on. We've got the ownership projections. We got rankings. We got everything you need to finalize and optimize your lineups for this week's DFS slate in Las Vegas for the Shriners Children's Open. So let's get into it, shall we? All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier this week I posted some research around the previous winners of the Shriners, some commonalities between them, and the players in the field this week who also fit that pattern. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. So that'll be out later this evening after the show. And then the final thing in terms of social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. And we have been working together on producing some content together. We're going to be finalizing that and maybe roll that out at the end of the fall. But we'll definitely be doing some content together starting in 2025. So you really want to make sure you are following him over on social media and subscribe to his article over on Substack. It is free to do, by the way. And if you are doing that, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat as he is generous enough to host me over there. We talk a lot of DFS over there. You really are missing out, so make sure you're doing that. Finally, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all in addition to the poll question that I'll put up momentarily. What are your thoughts on this week? How much do you think the forecast is going to hinder some players or promote some players? Who do you think wins? I want to hear all of your thoughts for the Shriners this week. So feel free to jump in chat. And if you're not able to catch the show live, feel free to put it in the comments. I will get to all of those there as well. But let's start getting into it. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Shriners Children's Open. And as I was alluding to, we have a chaotic forecast for TPC Summerlin this week. As you can see there, Thursday doesn't look too bad. Thursday morning, very calm winds, and Thursday afternoon, the wind looks like it's going to pick up quite a bit. Before I get too much further, let me make sure I post the poll question before I forget. So the poll question's a little interesting. It was something that Gabe and I had talked about throughout this week a little bit. Again, credit to Gabe as he was kind of at the forefront of this line of thinking. Which FedEx Fall debutante, meaning which player who has not played in the fall, they may have played the President's Cup, but that's not a stroke play event. Which FedEx Fall debutante performs the best this week? We've got 4 of them, essentially 9K and above. One's at 8,900 or 8,800. So I'll post that. Who do you think performs the best of these 4? I know there's a few of them, but I only have 4 options for the poll. So I would be interested to hear the community's thoughts on that. I certainly have a strong feeling towards one of these answers. So I'll make sure to have my answer towards the end of the show. But coming back to the forecast, very clearly tomorrow there's a fairly significant Thursday a.m. Favor in terms of draw. Now, some of the afternoon, like the earliest of early afternoon, might be okay, but they're still going to have some wind at the end of their round. Now, if a player is at the end of the afternoon round, it's going to be ugly for them. As you can see just how much wind is in the forecast. I mean, sustained winds nearing 20 mile an hour, gusts nearing 30. It's a very, very clear advantage for the Thursday AM portion of the draw. And then we move to Friday, and the entire wave essentially is dealing with a lot of wind. But again, the worst of it is Friday morning. Friday morning is going to get down possibly into the 40s when the players are out on the course. Very chilly with sustained winds in the mid-20s, gusting maybe even 40 miles an hour. So the worst of the wind both days is this Thursday PM, Friday AM portion of the draw. Now don't get it mixed up. The Friday PM is still dealing with some wind as well. So they're going to have to be good in the wind regardless. But it is very clear that the best wind appears to be the Thursday AM half of the draw. So I have got a very significant advantage to the Thursday AM, Friday PM portion. And really, it was kind of an added filter almost for me when I was filling out my lineups. I have to really, really like a player this week, and they have to be really good in the wind for me to consider playing them if they are in the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion. If nothing else, I don't think you're going to go wrong trying to stack the Thursday AM, Friday PM with this forecast. Now, we all know weather can change, all of that, but this has been fairly consistent since about Monday, maybe even Sunday evening, that it looked like the wind was going to pick up later in the day Thursday, stay through Friday, and it's going to stay throughout the majority of the tournament Saturday. Winds quite high, especially in the morning, tails off towards the end, and then Sunday looks fantastic. Maybe a little chilly by Las Vegas standards, but high of low 70s and no wind on Sunday. But Thursday PM, all of Friday, and Saturday morning is a lot of wind. A lot of wind. So again, just to recap, the best wind for the cut portion of the draw is clearly Thursday AM. Friday PM does get a little bit of a break, it looks like. So a very, very significant advantage for Thursday AM, Friday PM. All right, with that, we're going to move to Fantasy National. Let's take a couple of quick looks at some things here based on that forecast that we just saw. We're going to take a look at moderate and windy condition performance. Fantasy National trying to keep up is going a little slow, so bear with me. In rounds that are moderate or windy, defined by Fantasy National, your top performers in the past 2 years or 36 rounds: Brendan Todd, Harry Hall, Ricky Fowler, Andrew Novak, Adam Schenk, Doug Gim, Cam Davis, Chan Kim, Mark Hubbard, and Andrew Putnam. Chan Kim, a little bit of a small sample size here, only 13 rounds, going back to, just the Pro Core. The Wyndham was moderate or windy round one. Played very well at the Valero earlier this season. Looked like he did very well at Houston before the cut and then fell off on the weekend. But he has been pretty darn solid in moderate and windy conditions. So there's a look at your top 10 in terms of performance in the wind the past 2 years or 36 rounds. Maybe a little bit further down here: S.H. Kim, Kitayama, Yeager, Kuchar, Lashley, Justin Lauer, Streelman, Ches Reavie, Taylor Pendrith, Bud Cauley. There's a look at your top 20 or so. Players who have not performed well in the wind in the past 36 rounds or 2 years, whichever comes first: Kisner, ADDC, Brim, McCormick, Matthew Neesmith, which is interesting because he's played well here. Generally, the wind doesn't blow very much here. So, interesting to see. We always talk about Tom Kim. He's a bit of an anomaly here. He's been very good in the windiest of windy conditions. He's been poor when it's been moderate. That's what's been hurting him. Seamus Power, a little bit of a curious case here. Historically, in his career, he's been really good, windy and moderate, but in the recency, in the last 36 rounds, he hasn't been so good. St. Jude Wyndham was okay, but again, that Valero where Chan Kim was good, Seamus Power was atrocious. Waste Management, he was bad. Century, very, very bad at the beginning of this year. So, hasn't been good lately. Some others here, Joel Damon, Villegas, Merritt, EVR, Will Gordon, Molinari, Matty Schmidt, Trey Mullinax, and so on down. You can see there players who have not been good in the wind. All right, and then the only other thing that we know for certain about TPC Summerlin this week is that it's going to play short. I am still not confident after seeing this forecast that it's going to play easy. It might play average, but I don't think we're going to see a winning score in the 20s this week with the amount of wind that is in play throughout the majority of the tournament. So I'm going to look at short courses, and that's what I kind of defaulted to for a lot of the filters in the mixed condition model. But on short courses, those defined as less than 7,200 yards at Fantasy National, your top performers on short courses have been Tom Kim, Bo Hostler, Daniel Berger, Keith Mitchell, Eric Cole, J.J. Spawn, J.T. Poston, Ben Griffin, Carson Young, Taylor Montgomery. A little bit, scroll down there a little bit for you. Pendrith, Eckroat, Zach Blair's, Vincent, Hadwin, Hubbard, Davis Thompson, Grayson Sigg, Cam Davis, Chandler Phillips. Here's your top 20 players who have not played well on short courses. Tyson Alexander, Rafael Campos, Ben Taylor, Bram McCormick, Etcheverry Kisner. Let's see if we can't find some notable names here. Maybe Cameron Champ, Streelman, who played very well last week. Harris English has generally not performed well on shorter courses. Webb Simpson, Davis Riley, Pearson Cootie, Neesmith. So there's a look at some of the players who have not played well on short courses. All right, I alluded to the mixed condition model. So let's go ahead and go to that. The mixed condition model that I have made for TPC Summerlin and the Shriners this week. Again, having seen this forecast, I started this week Sunday thinking Shriners is generally pretty easy. Most winners are climbing into the low to mid 20s. But as that forecast solidified and stayed consistent, I started to back off thinking about easy and kind of went more with this short course. Now, I don't have any wind in the mixed condition model. That's why I cover total performance in the wind Monday night and at the beginning of the show tonight for your information. That way you can promote or back off players who might be good or bad in the wind, respectively. So I don't have any wind filters in the mixed condition model. I do that on my own when I make my lineups and such. But in terms of a mixed condition model for the Shriners, we're going to start with 10% off the tee on short courses. I started this week thinking off the tee wasn't going to be too important, and I think it's going to be, especially with the wind. And we've seen all week how much fairways matter. You need to play from the fairways. So I've got a lot of emphasis here on accuracy, on precision, especially off the tee. So 10% off the 10% off the tee on short courses, 15% fairways gained on short courses. Guys that just are going to be in the fairway. Players like Tom Kim, like Adam Hadwin, who generally perform really, really well here. Even though the rough isn't long, it promotes flyer lies, and it's professionals are just, you have a much harder time controlling your spin out of rough. And we've talked all week how around the green is tough here around TPC Summerlin. So you just need to be on the green. You need to be in the fairways so you can control your spin to hit your greens. So a lot of emphasis in precision off the tee. especially too because you're going to get a lot of rollout at TPC Summerlin. It's generally pretty firm, and especially with the wind, it's going to be extra firm and dry. So I want players who can control their tee shot. 15% approach, 15% around the green. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. As long as players are in the fairway, or even if they're in the rough, just not in the desert, they're still going to have to hit their approach shots well to contend. Around the green is very, very tough around TPC Summerlin, and with the amount of wind, I don't think it's going to play nearly as easy as it has in the past. Players are going to miss their targets, so I do think a lot of scrambling or around the green is going to be in play this week. So 15% in both of those. 5% in putting on bent greens. And I didn't use a speed filter. I would guess would be average with the amount of wind that is seemingly in play this week. But these greens have kind of waffled back and forth between fast and average. So we're just looking at bent putters, who is good on bent. And I didn't want to overweight it because bad putters have won this tournament, at least in the past. But I also wanted to give a slight nod to players that might putt bent better than other surfaces, like we talked about last week for the Black Desert Championship. So 5% putting on bent. I talked about fairways. 10% total procs. These greens are very large, 7,400 square feet. So they're very, very large. And players are going to be coming in from a lot of different distances. Instead of looking at opportunities, which I generally use when I think it's going to be easy, I just want to see who is essentially getting closest to the hole from a wide variety of ranges. 10% total procs. Throughout the week, I started feeling a little bit more confident looking at this 150 to 175. I didn't want to overweight it in case this is a tangent that I just get incorrect. But 5% from 150 to 175, I think players are going to back off a little bit off the tee this week, especially with all that wind. Lay further back to make sure they're in the fairway, I think. So it provides them or leaves them longer approach shots in. So those are the two ranges, total procs and then the specific range I think is going to be used most this week, or at least be the most important. And then we're going to finalize the mixed condition model with the different ranges of par 4s and 5s. 10% par 4s, 400 to 450. Look, 7 of the 11 par 4s at TPC Summerlin fall to this range. We saw Monday night in the Data Dive show, this is accruing almost half of the strokes gained total in par 4s. So definitely the emphasis there. The par 4s, 450 to 500, aren't to be ignored either. They contribute maybe another 20 to 25%. So only 5% there. This does mean I am leaving out the drivable par 4 or semi-drivable par 4. Over the years, it just hasn't contributed a whole lot in terms of upper leaderboard success for the players who have performed well here. So if it does this week, I'll be weak to that. But these are the ranges of par 4s, at least historically, have statistically mattered the most. You notice no par 3s. And then the par 5s, it's interesting because none of the par 5s measure to this length on the scorecard, but they're right at that 565 to 570 mark. So you can easily see them falling below 550, and they have quite a bit in the past few years. And then 550 to 600, 5% each on those. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. If the course still plays easy, even with all this wind, I'll be weak. I just don't see it playing as easy as it has historically. If distance ends up mattering, I think it's going to be more of a precision-based week based on the wind and all that. But if distance matters, I'll be weak to that. If this 150 to 175 procs doesn't matter, or if a different range matters, I'll be a little bit weak to that. So there's some areas where I might be a little bit cold if the tournament plays a little different than what I'm thinking, 12 hours before tee off. But there's a look at the mixed condition model that I've made for the Shriners this week. We'll move to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings. And as a reminder for those of you who are returning viewers, for your information, if you're a new viewer, my rankings are based on 3 criteria, and that's why I have this extra column here. My rankings are based on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just talked about, the metrics and percentages and all that. Fantasy National will spit out a ranking. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value on how well they have played that course the past 5 years. Somebody like Tom Kim, who has played it twice and finished first and first. That's why his course value is astronomically low. You can't get any better than first and first, I don't think. Let me know in the comments if you can. I would like to hear about that. But that's why his is so low. So that's what course value is. Essentially course history within the last 5 years. And then percent owned. We are playing DFS. We are trying to find unique options compared to the rest of our fellow contestants. So projected ownership per Fantasy National is also a factor in my rankings. Normally I do not have this column in my rankings, but with a significant, very significant half of the draw favor, that's why I added this column. You can see any player that has the Thursday PM, Friday AM is red and then green for supposedly the good half of the draw, Thursday AM, Friday PM. And that's why you see 4 players who have the bad half of the draw end up being in my top 4, because I'm not factoring this in inherently into these rankings. So that's just for your information as a viewer. My rankings, kind of, for the Shriners this week, Tom Kim would be my number 1 player without the draw. JJ Spawn, Doug Gim, Bo Hostler, and 6,500 Ryan Moore is 5th. We'll talk about him here in a second. Grayson Sigg, Pat Desire, Eric Cole, Matt Kuchar, and Keith Mitchell round out my top 10. Let's talk about Ryan Moore. Obviously, very unique. Has not played very well lately. He actually rated out pretty well for the metrics that we gathered in the mixed condition model. And he's also played the Shriners pretty darn well in the last 5 years. Now, look, the total procs is an eyesore. I think that needs to definitely improve. But his irons have been okay at 6,500. He's the number 2 fairway gained player. So, you know he's not going to take himself out of the hole. He does absolutely have to be better at the par 5s. But at 6,500 or 6,600, I kind of like Ryan Moore. So a little foreshadowing for, you know, a couple of things that I generally mention. But I didn't think he would fly or come up this high. But seeing him 18th in the rankings, knowing that he had some good course value or good course history, is going to be really unique. And the fact that he's got the good half of the draw, kind of like it. Kind of like it. I am not nearly as high on Grayson Sigg because of, first off, this. But he has not been as good as Ryan Moore. His irons have been a little weaker than Ryan Moore. And he's also not nearly as good on bent. He rated out okay. He rated out pretty good, honestly. But I'm not nearly as high on Grayson Sigg. These others, you can absolutely understand. I mean, Tom Kim, first and first, he's going to have immaculate course value, so he's going to rise. Spawn's been in good form lately. Gim, number 1 per the analytics, because we're not factoring in a whole lot of putting. Hostler's been great lately, all of that. So really it was kind of Ryan Moore and Grayson Sigg were the 2 surprises for me, and why I do like Ryan Moore, I don't like Grayson Sigg, and the explanation there. But enough of that. Let's sort on the price board and figure out where our fellow contestants seem to be going, at least our fellow contestants in via Fantasy National, and see how we can maneuver around the chalk. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks this week, we have 3 players. Tom Kim, 2-time defending champion Tom Kim at 10.8. Davis Thompson at 10-3, Taylor Pendrith at 10-2. Now, despite these rankings, I am all in on one of these players. And if you think about the forecasts and you think about, the half of the draw and all that stuff, it'll probably be pretty obvious who I'm all in on between these three. It's Taylor Pendrith. He's the only one of these three that has the good half of the draw. And I was kind of liking Pendrith before the draw even came out. You know, top 20 in irons, the around the green is worrisome. Absolutely. Definitely worrisome. But, I mean, very good at these short par fours. Good on bent. Look at this par 5 performance. I like Taylor Pendrith a lot, especially considering these two have the bad half of the draw. Now, Tom Kim is a fade. I'm definitely not going to have 20 to 25. He might even be 30% owned in these big contests. I'm definitely not going to have that much exposure to him, but I am going to play Tom Kim in a lineup or two. The guy is 2 for 2 with 2 wins here at the Shriners. There's something about this course that he likes. We looked at his wind performance. Yes, the moderate performance has been suspect or shaky, but historically he's been very good in the windiest of conditions. So I don't think the wind's going to bother him too much. The around the green could be an issue, but I do think Tom Kim is a worthy play in your 50-50s, in your double-ups, but what I expect to see, a 25 to 30% owned Tom Kim with the bad half of the draw, I just think he's a big fade, generally speaking. I just do. I think you can do much better, a.k.a. Taylor Pendrith, and others, in the 9s. So Tom Kim's a fade. I will play him once or twice just to have him. Davis Thompson, I want no part of. I'm completely out on Davis Thompson. He's not been good in the wind. He has not been in good. He did not finish the playoffs in good form. I just don't want any part of Davis Thompson. If he plays well, I will lose, and I accept that. So in the 10Ks, I'm all in on Taylor Pendrith because he's got the good half of the draw. I will play a marginal amount, and I mean a very small marginal amount of Tom Kim, and I want no part of Davis Thompson. Moving into the 9s, again, a couple of players that'll probably be pretty obvious on who I'm playing. Seamus Power, good half of the draw. This is some chalk I will eat. He proved me wrong at the Sanderson Farms, and then I played him a little bit last week, and I didn't play him enough because he played very well. He has not been the greatest at TPC Summerlin, but it's fine. I'm going to use some Seamus Power. I'm much, much higher on Taylor Pendrith, but I'll use some Seamus Power for sure. And then Eric Cole, again, with the good half of the draw. More chalk I'll eat. It's fine. I'm not worried about his off the tee because you've got quite a bit of miss room here, so long as you're not in a different area code. Good on bent. You see the proximity. So these two I'm going to be extremely overweight on. I will play some Hostler, even though he's got the bad half of the draw. He is one of the first tee times in the afternoon. So I'm hoping that wind kind of gets pushed back enough to where he can get maybe 8 to 12 holes in before it really kicks in. I do think Hostler will be fine. I just don't like the tee time. Not getting a whole lot of love either. So I think Hostler's fine. He's one of the very few players in the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion I'm willing to go to. But I do like a little bit of Hostler. I didn't know what to do with Kitayama last week. He ended up playing pretty well. He's got a really bad tee time. He's one of the later tee times. I want no part of Tom Hoge, despite the fact that he's very good with the irons and very good with wedges. His around the green game has been very suspect. Doesn't find a lot of fairways. Bent putting is atrocious. I want no part of Tom Hoge. If Davis Thompson and or Tom Hoge play well, I'll lose. That's fine. I don't want any part of those two. So in the 9Ks, I'll dabble with some Hostler, but I'm mainly going to Power and Cole, who are chalky. So we're gonna have to find some uniqueness lower in the price board. But it is what it is. These are two of the only two, in fact, in the 9Ks with the good half of the draw. Moving into the 8s, I'm going to mention Adam Hadwin. There's something to say about his performance at the Shriners. The guy just likes desert golf. His performance at TPC Scottsdale and the Amex and also TPC Summerlin. He just likes desert golf. So I'm not saying to go overboard with it because he does have a really bad tee time. But he likes the course. Generally okay in the wind. He's also not getting a whole lot of ownership. So his ownership's a little deflated. I like Hadwin a little bit. I'm just cautious because of this. So I'll kind of like Hostler. I'm going to dabble. I won't do much. Instead, I am right here. This whole area. I like all three of these guys. I don't understand why JT Poston's only at 10%. This needs to be a whole lot higher. The number one bent grass putter in this field. I understand he was in terrible form at the end of the 2024 season. The guy loves short courses. He takes advantage of short courses, which is what the Shriners is. I like JT Poston a lot. But I like Harry Hall a lot again. I know he fell apart on Sunday in Utah. Don't care. Great bent putter. Very good around the green. I think he's primed to have a big tournament this week. Poston and Griffin. Griffin should be fine as well. I'm lowest on Griffin of these three, but I'm still going to play a lot of Ben Griffin. So, I will dabble with a little bit of Hadwin because of the immaculate course history. Cam Davis might be worth a look. I'm not in love with it, but it's worthy of a look. Love Hall. I like Griffin. I love Poston. So I'm doing a whole lot of this in my lineups. Tells you the kind of lineups I'm building. Moving into the upper sevens. JJ Spawn would have rated out second. I don't want anything with him. I know he played well last week after the withdrawal at the Sanderson Farms. It's going to be chilly this week in Las Vegas. And a guy that's dealt with health issues before, popular, bad tee time, I can get off of it. So if he plays well, I'll lose. But this is some chalk I'm willing to fade. So I'm off of JJ Spawn. Take a look at Harris English. I know he hasn't been necessarily great at the Shriners, but fourth in bent putting. I mean, you saw what he did last week, so this approach number is a lot better than what it's showing. You know he's in really, really good form. I like Harris English. I like others more. But, English, Hall, Griffin, Poston, I am loving this area of the price board. So, if I need to get a little bit of savings or ownership discount too on Harry Hall or maybe even a Ben Griffin, I don't mind coming down to English for that. Elsewhere in the upper sevens, again, not a lot that I like because a lot of the bad tee times. Matty Schmid, okay. He's getting a little bit more popular than I would like for Matty Schmid. I know he's been playing great lately, but That's a lot of ownership for Matty Schmidt. I'd much rather go to Chan Kim, who is 1.5% less, rated out a whole lot better than Matty Schmidt. You want to talk about short courses? Generally, Chan Kim plays easy very well, but he also plays short very well. He's also been second around the green in the last 36 rounds. Good off the tee. Dang it, it's off your screen. Sorry. 20th off the tee. The putter on bent, this is a very small sample size, so not terribly worried with it. Generally a good iron player. Again, this is the short and easy and good tee time. I am going to use a metric F ton of Chan Kim. I love Chan Kim this week. I also like Austin Eckroat this week. The around the green is scary. He's a really, really good ball striker. You got to hope that he just finds the greens and rolls a few putts. Putter can get pretty bad for him, but he's got a good tee time. Very low ownership. I kind of like Eckroat. Moving into the mid-sevens, again, I'll go back to Svensson. I'm going to be a little bit wary about it because I was all in on him at Sanderson Farms. Killed me. I dabbled with him at the Black Desert, and he played really, really well. Maybe it's a bent grass thing. I don't know. First and around the green also helps him. He rates out extremely well. If you're not gun shy about it, if you don't have the scars that I do, I think Svensson's probably worthwhile to fire up. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious because he's burned me a couple times lately. But he does rate out extremely well. Ben Silverman, despite the lack of ranking here, fourth in bent putting, eighth on these short par fours. Take a long look at Ben Silverman. He's not nearly as unique as I would like him to be. But take a look at Ben Silverman. Then moving into the lower sevens, Doug Gim would be a recommendation, except he's got a really bad tee time. So, I will use him once or twice just to have him. But that tee time scares me off. Instead, I'm going to Kuchar. I'm going to Charlie Hoffman. You want to talk about somebody who likes desert golf? That's Charlie Hoffman. So I am going to play these two. And I will use a little bit of Berger, although I was really hoping people got scared off of him last week, since he played really well despite the fact that he didn't have a top finish. So I was hoping that would keep people from gravitating towards him. I'll use a little bit of Berger, but I do like Kuchar, Hoffman, Berger in the low sevens. I'll even use a Webb Simpson once or twice. I'm really not down here a whole lot, just based on the lineups I'm building. But if I am, I'm just throwing a scatter shot approach on guys who have good tee times. Even a Nick Taylor, Ben Coles, who's been good lately. These are the guys. I'm just taking a scatter shot with these guys. I'll throw Berger into a lineup, then the next one I'll throw Fishburne into one. Might have Nick Taylor in one. It's just I have my very, very tight core, and I'm just trying to mix and match around those 4 or 5 guys that are in 80 to 90% of my lineups. Hey, good evening, Pete. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hope your week has went well. How did your Black Desert Championship go? I'm not hacking a lung into your ear, so all's well in the world again. But it's good to see you this evening. Thanks again for jumping in chat. So yeah, in the low sevens, anyone who's got a decent tee time or good tee time, I've been willing to throw in a lineup, but I'm not doing it a lot. I think I would probably use Matt Kuchar the most, but I'm trying to limit myself to coming down here a lot, based on the fact that I'm, a bunch of Harry Hall, Ben Griffin, Poston, English, tells you the kind of lineups I'm building. And then moving into the 6Ks, I do want to mention 2 or 3 people, or 2 or 3 players to you all. Had a great Black Desert, but didn't play much, came within a few points of winning tourneys. Hey, congratulations. Last I checked, if you get more than you put in, it's profit. So I'm glad to hear it, P. Well done. I was not upset with my performance. Things just didn't go my way. I was really, really high on Harry Hall. He backed up a lot on Sunday. That kind of hurt. I had several good 5 of 6s, which kind of capped how much I could make. I didn't have any 6 of 6 lineups. It just so happened, I would have one with Keith Mitchell in whatever lineup, and then Michael Thorbjornsen killed me. So I just had a little bit of bad luck with that. Hall and Gim were the ones who killed my chances on Sunday. Yeah, I wasn't really all that keen on Doug Gim. I know he's, at least local college prospect for you, but I wasn't terribly high on him. But I figured he might have a chance. But yeah, Harry Hall really hurt me, so I was right there with you on that one. But I'm glad to hear that you had a successful week. Well done. In the 6s, again, 2 to 3 players I want to casually mention here. First one's Rico Hoey. Look, we've paid upwards of 8, low 8s and upper 7s for Rico Hoey recently in tournaments, and he's all the way down into the 6Ks with a good tee time. It's worth a look. It's worth a long look. He's good around the green. Doesn't hit the most fairways, but the Shriners is pretty forgiving off the tee. Really good with the longer par 4s. Decent enough on these par 5s. Rico Hoey's worth a look if you're in the 6Ks. Another look is Chad Ramey. Chad Ramey's actually been fairly solid at the Shriners in a couple of tries. Going to be low owned. Decent putter on bent. Top 50, top 20 on these very short par 4s, which you have to be good at. And he's good at that those lengths of par 4s. Also, pretty darn good around the green. Like, you think about his win at the Corrales. A lot of people think Corrales is a birdie fest. It's not really. It's a fairly tough course. It's a long course, so that's doesn't play with Shriners in that regard. But around the green matters around Corrales, and he won there. So it's worth a mention, especially because he has a good tee time. But as people could probably guess when the rankings were revealed, the mad scientist play is Ryan Moore. I do like Ryan Moore quite a bit this week. Number 2 in fairways, very good courses or good course history. It's going to be unique. It's not without risk. The guy, total procs isn't great. He doesn't take advantage of par 5s. He's not in good form. It's not without risk, but I do think enough lines up for Ryan Moore that he will be serviceable for you. So with that, let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contests for those who play tiers contests, and then we'll make or move to classic lineups and maneuver around all this chalk to see what we can do on these big GPPs. So in tier 1, you have Tom Kim, Davis Thompson, Taylor Pendrith. This is a one-man tier, no ifs, ands, or buts. Give me Taylor Pendrith, especially because Tom Kim will be pretty chalky. Give me the guy that is for sure has the good tee time. Tier 2, Jaeger, Hoagie, Kitayama, Hostler, and Keith Mitchell. All 5 of these have a bad tee time. Because of that, I will go with the person that I'm most confident in that probably is going to make the cut. Famous last words, but I want no part of Tom Hoagie. Keith Mitchell can't putt to save his life. Give me Bo Hostler. He might be chalky in this tier, but he's the only one I've got a lot of confidence in. Jaeger would be interesting, except for the fact that he's not played well here in multiple tries. Now, he is a better player than what he was when he was playing these tournaments, playing the Shriners in the past. But just give me Bo Hostler. I think he's the safest choice in Tier 2. Tier 3, Seamus Power, Matt McCarty, Eric Cole, Adam Hadwin, and Matt McNeely. Normally, I would say Hadwin because of his immaculate course history, but he's got the bad half of the draw. So for me, it's between Seamus Power and Eric Cole. kind of flipping a coin here. I mean, this is truly 1A, 1B in the tier for me. I'm going to go with Seamus Power. Only because we know he's in great form recently off that really good performance at the Black Desert Championship. But if you like Eric Cole, use Eric Cole. I mean, this really truly is flip a coin for me. They both have the same projected ownership, at least in classic lineups. Eric Cole rated out a little bit better. I will go with Seamus Power. Absolutely nothing wrong with Eric Cole. Tier 4, Cam Davis, Harry Hall, Ben Griffin, JT Poston, Johnny Vegas, Spawn, and Harris English. For me, it's between Poston and Hall. I'm going to go Poston based on this projected ownership, thinking he might be unique in the tier. Harry Hall is very good. I love Harry Hall this week. Foreshadowing the betting card, foreshadowing a lot of things. Love Harry Hall again this week. But because of this projected ownership, I think Poston might be a little bit more unique. Give me JT Poston in Tier 4. Tier 5, we have Kevin Yu, Manny Schmid, Putnam, EVR, Chan Kim, Austin Eckroat, Ryan Fox. Pretty clear Chan Kim for me, even if he is the chalkiest option in this tier. Also partly why we went JT Poston in Tier 4. Give me Chan Kim in Tier 5. Austin Eckroat is a worthwhile look as well if you're playing multiple lineups of tiers. Then Tier 6, Smalley, Chandler Phillips, Gary Woodland, Nick Taylor, Norlander, Mark Hubbard, and Ben Coles. Ugh. You see Ben Coles is getting a lot of love, at least in classic lineups. It's okay, I guess. I mean, I think he's the best one in this tier. So he'll be chalky, but it's either Ben Coles or maybe Alex Smalley, and I don't feel great about it. Nick Taylor might be worth a look as well, but I'll go Ben Coles in Tier 6. This tier's construction goes Taylor Pendrith in Tier 1, Bo Hostler Tier 2. Tier 3, I'll say Seamus Power, although it's very, very close between him and Cole. Tier 4 is JT Poston, only because of the lack of ownership. I really like Harry Hall as well. The lack of ownership compared between these two. So I'll go Poston in Tier 4. Tier 5, Chan Kim. Tier 6, Ben Coles. All right, let's move to classic lineups. How it seems our fellow contestants are building their lineups and how we can maneuver around them. So, very clearly, the most projected on player, Tom Kim, even with the bad tee time, I mean, winner, the past 2 years. And it looks like players, or our fellow contestants, are bottoming out at Ben Coles, 7,000. Nick Hardy, maybe. In the 6Ks, you've got a couple of players garnering a little bit of attention. Joe Highsmith at 7%, Neesmith at 7.5%, Joel Damon at 9%, but that's really about it. So because of that, I'm going to end this, or bottom this out at Ben Coles. They might have a 6K in here, but just based on Fantasy Nationals ownerships, it's Ben Coles. And then Daniel Berger. If they're willing to go double low 7, that really frees them up to do what they want up here. You know, this could be Seamus Power. Maybe they're coming down into the 8s. This is Harry Hall, who, again, I really, really like. They might have to come off of Power a little bit. I'm just trying to highlight as much that they could do. I mean, Kuchar's at 11% would fill this out. Gim's at 11%. This might not be the most ownership, but a chalky enough lineup with Tom Kim would look like. If they come off of Seamus Power, it would go Eric Cole, and then they could bring Doug Gim all the way up to a Chan Kim, maybe an Adam Svensson. it's roughly the same, right around this 92 to 94% cumulative ownership. A little bit on the heavy side, but nothing like what we saw last week with Patrick Fishburne in the 25-30% range and whatnot. So this is chalky. Again, I'm not really all that high on Tom Kim, but all these other players I'm going to be using. So we're going to have to find a way to, find some uniqueness around these players. Because again, I'm really high on Cole. I really like Harry Hall. I'm going to use Svensson. I'll use both of these guys scatteringly. So the only other lineup construction I could see being, is obviously a balanced lineup. Would start with Seamus Power, Eric Cole. Would maybe bottom out at Daniel Berger. Get Ben Silverman in here. He's at 12%. This would be Harry Hall again. Just to try to use some different names here. JJ Spawn getting a lot of attention. 92. Mitchell's not necessarily. Maybe Cameron Davis. This is leaving a little bit on the table, but this is the kind of shell you can expect if you're going to run into balanced lineups. Like Power, maybe Pendrith, Cole, Hadwin, Davis in there, and then moving on down, Harry Hall would definitely be in this, probably right around a 90% cumulative ownership, a little bit heavy. So we've got some work to do. We definitely got some work to do to find our uniqueness. So how are we going to go about that? Well, I've been building almost exclusively balanced lineups, so I'll try to make a Stars and Scrubs one here. If I'm going to go into the 10Ks, I'm going to go to Taylor Pendrith. The one with the good tee time. He loves short courses. Give me Taylor Pendrith, and I gave you a few 6K plays. Rico Hoey, Chad Ramey. I'm going to use Ryan Moore, who should be pretty darn unique. And then, try to get maybe a little bit greedy up here. Maybe you aren't scared of Bo Hostler's tee time. You can think about maybe Hostler if you want to get off some of that Seamus Power chalk. Hostler maybe. Kitayama. Again, this week, I really truly have no idea what to think about Kitayama. I didn't know what to do with him last week. He ends up playing well. Maybe you want to, go back to the well with Kitayama. Or maybe if you don't get greedy, or maybe you get greedy in a different way, maybe you go Harry Hall, JT Poston, just fill out. In fact, you could probably Harry Hall, JT Poston, find you a mid to low 7 that you might like. I mentioned Kuchar, Charlie Hoffman, Svensson, maybe Eckroat, Austin Eckroat. I'd much rather play Chan Kim, but just trying to highlight the uniqueness here. You got 9,100 here, which is Eric Cole. You can afford to take another chalky player. You're at a little bit over a 70% cumulative ownership. You're at 20% less than than the Stars and Scrubs we built with Tom Kim, Ben Coles in them. So, Ryan Moore, a little bit of a shot in the dark, sure. Anyone really debating on Austin Eckroat's ball striking? So, JT Poston and his performance on short courses. Everyone loves Hall this way. You got 3 of the tournament favorites still squeezed into this lineup, and you're still only at 70% cumulative ownership. So that's how I've been building my Stars and Scrubs lineups. I've been going Pendrith, mainly going to Cole, although I will sometimes go up to a Hostler or a Seamus Power, and then fill it out from there. Don't mind going into the 6s very sparingly for a Moore, a Chad Ramey, maybe a Rico Hoey. But again, the majority of my lineups have been balanced, and I've been just, filling up the 8s. We'll go Harris English here, JT Poston, who I'm really, really high on, Harry Hall, Chan Kim, who's a little bit more owned than some of these others, but I'm really think Chan Kim's going to play well. We got 9,000 per player. You can maybe go Eric Cole and Adam Hadwin, or like if we do Seamus, there's a little bit more owned. We still got 87 for Ben Griffin. We can throw into this. Ben Griffin. We're still at that 70 to 75% cumulative ownership with two of the tournament favorites. Somebody who I think should be in JT Poston. You're not even flirting with the low sevens. You can Kuchar, Hoffman, Daniel Berger. I don't mind throwing in the lineup. I'll use Doug Gim and Patton Kazire once just to have them. But I'm taking a real scattershot approach down there in the low sevens because, my core, they won't all fit. I'm just telling you that now. But, my core is something along this line. Barry Hall, JT Poston, Chan Kim. And then, again, this shows you I've got 7,600 left. Throw a dart. Once it'll be Matt Kuchar. Once it'll be Charlie Hoffman. Once it'll be Berger. Maybe you like Justin Lauer. Webb. I'll throw Webb into a lineup. Fishburne. Neil Shipley's in this field. I wanted to like Neil Shipley until he had the bad half of the draw. So you can see these 5 are my core. Maybe 6 if you want to count Taylor Pendrith, because I will be using quite a bit of Taylor Pendrith as well. But these 5, 6, maybe Harris English, and then a scatter shot of everyone else. Svensson, Eckroat, Silverman, dart throws on these others to fill in that 6th spot, or maybe 5th and 6th spot if I have a Taylor Pendrith. So I'll just throw in Svensson because he rounds out the pricing on it. A little bit more ownership, but that is the kind of lineups that I've been building the most. So if it isn't obvious, my answer to the poll question, which it looks like that's P's answer as well, as there's only one vote. But which of these 4 performs best this week? I think it's Taylor Pendrith. Multitude of factors, mostly due to the expected good half of the draw. But Taylor Pendrith also likes short courses. So I like Taylor Pendrith a lot this week. That's my answer to the poll question. No one and done. That ended with the Tour Championship. So be on the lookout later on this evening. I'll put my betting card and the top players the players I'm using most often in my lineups over on X here momentarily once I wrap the stream up and whatnot. I'll also be in Gabe's Substack chat. He has returned this week, so we're going to continue the DFS talk over there. And be on the lookout. Later on this fall, we are going to be working together on putting out some content together, trying to iron out what that looks like. Whether it's on my show or on his Twitter feed or whatever. But be on the lookout for that as well. So thanks to P for jumping in chat, and thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. A couple of weeks of mediocre results, so we're going to try to push ourselves into the positive this week for the Shriners. So thanks again, and I will be over in Gabe's Substack chat momentarily. For all the wagers you have made this week for the Shriners, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Shriners, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.